Alrighty, just like that, we are live with a reaction episode of Locked On Ducks. I mean, that game was a lot of things. Pretty was not one of them. Enjoyable to watch, probably also not something to describe. I recognize the shirt I'm wearing is Wisconsin red, but I just wanted to wear a team that showed up to play football today. Go Birds! The other birds in Oregon, the Ducks. That wasn't great.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it's that time for a reaction episode of Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view post Oregon's win over Wisconsin. It was indeed a win. It counts. It goes in the left column. That's mostly James Ferguson Reynolds is great. There's another positive. I'll find some to talk about in this game, but I'll do it all in this episode brought to you by our friends at Mazda. Like Oregon's players, they sweat every detail at Mazda because, well, Mazda might sweat them a little more. Because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected, that's only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights. And this week's Moving the Game Forward, Mazda, move and be moved. My computer was just completely bugging. I was trying to get on here and go live as soon as possible for you guys, and it just wouldn't work. It wouldn't function the way that it is supposed to, the way that I've seen it function so many times. And I thought it was a pretty accurate metaphor for Oregon's offense in this game. By the way, Southern Utah won. I feel like Shane Gillis going on here. Go Birds! Go Birds. They beat the rival today. But yeah, here we go. We got our first one. 92 minutes into the stream, we've got our first Fire Will Stein comment out there. And look, this was not a pretty game by any stretch. Let's start with positive. Oregon won the game. You know, it would have been full meltdown mode if Oregon had found a way to lose the football game, but they didn't. They won. I did say I was going to be disappointed if the defense gave up a touchdown, and given the weather conditions, yeah, I'm a little disappointed. I don't think the defense played horribly by any stretch. Hunter Simmons this has just got to be tough. He threw a touchdown in the game. Give him credit. That's not easy. Wisconsin had 196 total yards. Simmons was 7 of 21 for 86 yards and a pick on 4.1 yards per attempt. I mean, yeah, that's about what you'd want it to look like. Oregon ran the ball for 200 yards in this game. You take out sack yardage, it's closer to 220 and beyond. Those are good things. Oregon won. You know, yeah, those were good things. So here's a good question to ask you early in the show. On a scale of 1 to 10, this is from Tushum. On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad was the weather? So the reason I think it's incredibly fair, despite Oregon winning and the weather having been really bad, the reason it's fair to be critical of the Oregon offense is in the first quarter in particular, but really from what I saw most of the first half, the weather was not actually that big of a deal. It was there. The ball was a little slick because it had rained, so every time it touches the ground, it's a little... But there was some sunlight breaking through. Now, in the second half, that was just borderline impossible. You know, throwing the ball became really, really difficult. I talked about the weather as much as I ever have all week in the lead up to this game. In the second half, it was a legitimate challenge. And I want to credit Brock Thomas, who somehow finished the game 4 of 4 for 46 yards and a touchdown. And sure, one of those passes was deflected by a Wisconsin defender, Dante Moore, who led Oregon with 3 catches for 45 yards. Team had 132 passing yards total in the game. Yeah, that was one of the passes. But you know what? Where there's a will, there's a way. And Brock Thomas had a will. Brock Thomas, quarterback too. We saw why. Dan Lanning, I think, is making a very declarative statement here that he doesn't think the other two guys are doing anything wrong, but Brock Thomas is quarterback too, and you see why. And it's kind of hard to argue with the results. He looked good again, so I guess that's a positive to it. But yeah, the second half, I can't in good faith judge the passing offense or really that much from the second half. So I'm gonna put that to the side. Let's focus on when the weather was manageable. That first quarter was horrible. I mean, horrible. And the Fire Will Stein crowd that exists out there, I'm sure will be plenty loud and vocal in this live stream and as the show sits on YouTube for a while. And look, I'm not going to tell you that I'm jumping there because of this game, because last week also happened where Oregon was unstoppable. And the second half of this game was ugly, and Oregon still ran for over 200 yards, which takes more schematic preparation than I think a lot of you realize. But, yeah, the first quarter, half of football, inexcusably bad. I'm not going to come in here and accept it. I'm not going to go out and push back as much as I normally would on the crowd that wants to get rid of Oregon's offensive coordinator. Like, a lot of things went wrong today, but Oregon just coming out the gate just didn't look like they were really ready to go. You know, the sack that Isaiah World allowed is a great example. It's just one example. I'm not trying to single him out as he was the big problem. Dante Moore got sacked. I think it was on a 3rd and 4 or something in the first half. And he just didn't hear the snap count. Oregon's at home. He got off the ball out of his stance late and allowed a sack because he either thought they were going on 2 or he didn't hear the clap cadence, whatever they were using. Like, those sorts of things, man, you would think that in game 8, that sort of stuff at home would be buttoned up, and it wasn't. It just flat out wasn't. Once again, Oregon runs the ball well. Noah Whittington had a great game. Jordan Davison is great. De'Aaron Hill only carried it twice, but had 28 yards. I don't think you can argue with the running game at this point. But, man, something's off with the passing offense or something was off with the passing offense in this game. It was just, and again, I'm only talking about the first half, because once the weather starts coming down, it is not fair or reasonable to go out and be incredibly critical and, they should have done that, they could have done that. No, once the weather starts coming down, it's okay, let's get out of here as healthy as we possibly can, win the football game, and just lean on the defense, which they did. And the defense played very well. Well, they didn't fulfill the hope I had for them. Wisconsin got a touchdown. That was disappointing. But, I mean, I look at the play that they scored on, or that led to them scoring. Like, you're hitting the quarterback as he throws. He throws up a prayer, and a guy comes back and makes a play. I don't know, man. Like, again, I'm not worried about this defense. They got playmakers. They got guys. When Wisconsin, before the bad weather, had a chance to move the ball, they couldn't at all, really. I know there were some moments where the run defense didn't look great. Oregon gave up 110 rushing yards in this game. If that's a bad outing, then okay. But, yeah, the first quarter half of offense in this game, just terrible. Like, Wisconsin is so bad. They're so bad. And they had this a 7-0 game at the half. That's not okay. That's completely not okay. And there was not enough weather in the first half to justify it being like that. Now, in the second half, the hold on the fake punt is unfortunate. It's very unfortunate because that was an awesome play. Joe Lorig, special teams coach, is doing a really good job. But, yeah, I think that this was just a bad, ugly first half, supplemented by bad, ugly weather. But should Oregon have scored 17 points in the first quarter of this game? Yeah, absolutely. The way that they were able to run the ball, Wisconsin's defensive personnel, man, it shouldn't have been that hard. It should not have been that hard. But it was. And this looked again like Will Stein was just getting out-coached. Did Dante Moore drops back to pass, and did the offensive line have its best game? No. But there were a couple of coverage sacks in there, which means that Wisconsin had answers for what Oregon was dialing up, and Oregon wasn't able to find a response. I mean, you know what the most disappointing thing is? I will tell you the most disappointing part of this football game. After I tell you about our friends over at Mazda. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. I'm so bummed So this isn't even the moment that I found to be the most disappointing. I'm so bummed that James Ferguson Reynolds and Roger Saliapaga don't have their first career touchdowns on the box score. They should, and a hold took it away. That's a bummer. Man, that play was awesome. It took some, I don't know how much guts, because you knew Wisconsin wasn't going to score a whole heck of a lot more, if at all. But Dan Lanning rolls the dice a little. Ferguson Reynolds should have had his second fake punt. Saliapaga, the catch and run, looked awesome. And then it got taken away. That stuck. That should have been, that's the would have been Mazda moving the game forward moment. But that would have done more than just move the Ducks into the end zone. It would have been an iconic college football highlight. But alas, it was called back. And that's kind of how it feels for the Oregon offense today. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. Just like there's more to every highlight, there is more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Ye old live second segment sip. Okay, you know what the worst part about this game was? Dan Lanning comes out and onside kicks Wisconsin. Like, what did was there residual frustration that last year's game in Madison was so hard? Was Lanning just in a mood? Did they see some? I don't know, man. Joe Lorig was cooking today. Joe Lorig was probably, pound for pound, moment for moment, the best coach on Oregon's sideline today. Should have had a fake punt touchdown. Ferguson Reynolds downed him at the one, almost resulted in a safety. Made all the kicks, recovered an onside kick. Like, man, Joe Lorig, the special teams coach, deserves a shout out. But Dan Lanning comes out with just the most hilariously unexpected start to a game. Oregon's predicted to roll. They're a big favorite. We all know Oregon's a much better team. Lanning comes out with an onside kick. Like, dude, it's objectively funny. I laughed when I saw it. And then my happiness was washed away like the rain washing away somebody's makeup in the second half there at Autzen. Because Oregon went 4 and out? Like, guys, let's say, for the sake of argument, last week they had the Indiana loss to motivate them. And that was very clear. Oregon was taking out frustration on Rutgers. Let's say after that game, they know they're better in Wisconsin, and they struggle getting into the right mindset in this game. If Dan Lanning was trying to spur them on, there's literally nothing else you could do than start the game with an onside kick and then recover it. The confidence you have in your defense, if that doesn't work out, should be really high. And guess what? Oregon's defense was great in the first half. Looked exactly as I wanted them to. 0 points allowed. I don't want to hear nitpicking about the defense in the first half. I will not stand for that. You want to criticize Will Stein today? Pretty fair thing to do. Because for the offense to come out and go 4 and out against Wisconsin? Like the beginning of this game, again, just first half, not the second. I really, with that rain, which was legit, I don't really care offensively what happened in the second half. I don't care. I'm frankly glad they got some experience in it. They got a big man touchdown to, are we just going to call him a tight end, Janoris Wilson? I don't know. But I just cannot believe that after that spark at home, you get the spark of all sparks to begin the game. And then the offense comes out flat? That was a buzzkill and a half. It's like, oh, well, what was the point of doing something cool? Or as ballsy or gutsy as an onside kick if you were going to 4 and out? Yikes, man. That was a yikes. The fourth down play call, Dante didn't have time to I don't know that there was a great third read on the play. He had Sadiq on the shallow cross. That was taken away. Decorian Moore, I think, is who he wanted over the middle. They doubled him. If he looked Gary Bryant first, it was there for a first down. But, you know, you read the defense. You're trying to get the ball to your go-to guys, and Wisconsin takes them away. And Oregon's offensive line didn't hold up long enough for that. So, yeah, that kind of took the air out of everything except the defense, of course. Man, the defense looks good. It is so refreshing. I think the best thing I saw in this game, it is so refreshing to watch safeties make plays in coverage. It feels like it has been a minute. But Oregon has got two guys that can roam over the top and make plays. And that's a great thing to see. But the offense in this game, to get going like that, there's no excuse. I'm not going to come on here and make one. I'm not. What excuse? I don't even know what excuse I could come up with if I really wanted to. I can't. There is not a good one. In the first half, the sun was breaking through. The ball's a little wet. Not enough. It was not the second half. The second half got ugly, and Oregon won the game and they ran the ball well. But man, I just continue to be perplexed. Going back to the Indiana game for just a moment, the amount of success Oregon has running the ball relative to the lack of offensive production is confusing. That is really confusing. Oregon is not an air raid system. Dan Lanning has spoken over the years, I think Will Stein has as well, about trying to be balanced on offense and not wanting to just rely on one. And I think that's great. And Oregon has the talent and depth and ability to go and be balanced, and they're running the ball, and the passing game just isn't there. I don't know if Dante wasn't seeing things. I'll watch the game again on Sunday in full and try to pick up some more on that front. But yeah, just the run game wasn't there as much in the first half. They found it more in the second, and Oregon started to open up some lanes. And Oregon's got a great trio of running backs, man. I mean, you got Davison at 6.4 yards a carry, Whittington at 6.9 yards a carry, De'Aaron Hill 2 carries for 28 yards. A 27-yarder and a 1-yard touch. Like that trio's elite. That trio is elite. And the offensive line is run blocking plenty well enough for them to go out and make plays, and they're doing that. And then there's just nothing. There just was nothing there. That this game was 0-0 at the end of the first quarter is crazy. That is crazy. This first quarter should have looked like last week's first quarter. I know that version of the Oregon offense is in there. And for the Will Stein critics out there, you have to include both data points. At least that's what I'm going to try and do. This is certainly a knock against Stein, 100%. But last week was also exactly how it was supposed to look. Bad first drive, and then the floodgates open. And they just never opened up in this game. They did on the skies. They did on the skies, and that was about it. When I came on here to do the live show, I was thinking of that scene in the Benchwarmers when they get back from scrimmaging the bullies, and they see Howie, who's a agoraphobe, played by Nick Swartzen, a comedian who I've seen live. He's very funny. He is there in the closet. He pokes his head out. And the first thing he says, "Hey guys, how did hitting the balls go?" And knowing how I figured plenty of you would be mood-wise coming into this game, it kind of felt like Howie, like, "Hey guys, how you doing? No, yeah." And it was frankly an accurate representation of Oregon to be David Spade's character, where he goes, "We had these kids who thought they were too cool, and we played them, and we smoked them, and I had a foul, man. It was sweet." It just wasn't a gangbusters performance, but it was a win. It was a win. So At least there was that. I could not share that. I was making myself laugh way too hard before I hopped on here to record. So keep leaving your thoughts in the comments. No, I'm not a little buzzed. Chill. You guys, chill. I just came from the broadcast booth. What do you think between then and here, just getting absolutely no, guys, relax. But yeah, keep leaving your thoughts. Drop some questions. Dante Moore, Dan Lanning said he could have come back in the game, which is good. But let's talk more about the quarterback situation, because why the heck not? First, this episode brought to you by DoorDash. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered. Powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. Jordan Davison, 100-yard game, 2 touchdowns. He's a dude. He's a dude. Like Drax said about Thor. No, you were a dude. This is a man. Well, Jordan Davison is a man. 102 yards, 2 touchdowns on a day where you knew Oregon was going to run it a lot because of the weather, particularly in the second half. Jordan Davison delivered. And, of course, you got to shout out the offensive line anytime you have a big day running the football. But Jordan Davison delivered just like DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season. You can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day. Saturday's still going, especially if you're watching this on the West Coast. Only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. This episode also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. No, Oregon did not cover, and look, in my own defense, I picked them to not cover when I made my original score prediction. Then the line moved. Yeah, anyway. So they don't get to 30 points, just 21. But the NFL season's here anyway, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Oregon was, I think, around 31.5 by the time this one closed. Yeah, became very clear after the first quarter. The weather's only going to get worse. They are not even going to score 31 points in the game. Lo and behold, they didn't. But the biggest key, as Southern Utah's head coach tells me every single week when we record our pregame interview for the pregame show, biggest key to victory, scoring at least one more point than the other team. Teams that do that, very good track record. Oregon did that. They scored 14 more than Wisconsin, so at least there's that. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Check them out at FanDuel.com. Am I allowed to do a third segment sip? Is that cool? Is that all right? Yeah, I kind of done a lot of talking today. A lot of talking. All right, so Dante Moore on a play that I don't know that he was supposed to carry the ball, but he did carry the ball, gets whacked by a forearm and looks like he breaks his nose. And yeah, it's like the last thing you'd want to see in a game where Oregon, think about this, played this poorly, led 21-0. That's how much better in Wisconsin they were. What was this, a D-plus game? Well, the defense didn't have a D-plus game. The defense had like a C-plus game. The offense had like a D-minus game. And Oregon won the game by 14 points. And it wasn't even that close once Oregon built the 3-touchdown lead. So I think that if you look at Oregon's performance in this game overall, is it great? No, it's definitely not. But the worst thing that could have happened, aside from losing, which also didn't happen, is you get key players hurt. And so Dante Moore got whacked with a forearm in the nose. And, yeah, it's not great. I think he's going to be all right. Certainly hope that's the case. But, Lanning spoke after the game about Brock Thomas. And Zach Neal tweeted this out, Lanning was asked about the QB2 role and why it has been Novosad or Luke Moga. He said, quote, "Our backup quarterback was 4 for 4 tonight." Fact check, true. "We won the game. They should go to our locker room and see them carry Brock Thomas up in the locker room after the game. Like, our players see it every day in practice. When did Brock come in and not perform well for us this season? He's done what we've asked him to do every time he's come in. People should stop worrying about it, and they should also know that those other quarterbacks are doing a really good job in practice too, but Brock's playing well, right? Watch the film, end quote. With Brock Thomas, he is, I think, a victim for a lot of Oregon fans of the recruiting expectations game. If I didn't tell you anything about the Oregon backup quarterbacks, would you watch Brock Thomas come in and think there was a problem? No. The only reason that you think there's a problem is Novosad and Moga were higher rated recruits, which they were. Fact check true. Doesn't automatically mean they become better college players. And Brock Thomas looks like, at this point in time, he's a better quarterback than Austin Novosad or Luke Moga. Yeah, maybe it does lead to one of them transferring one day. I'll still root for them wherever they go. But this is clearly the situation going forward, because the game was still in doubt. This wasn't, let's get the local kid some snaps because he is a legacy player at Oregon and went to school nearby or anything. No. Like, he was not a composite 3-star recruit. He's a 24/7 rated 3-star recruit, not a super highly regarded guy. Guess what? I know another quarterback from Sheldon High School. I think he and Herbert went to the same high school. Maybe they didn't, but same area. I know another guy from that area that was really under-recruited. His name's Justin Herbert, who is a 3-star. Let me pull up Justin Herbert's recruiting profile. One sec. Justin Herbert, 24/7. He was, as a quarterback, not even the top player in the state of Oregon. He was the number 648 player in the country. He was the 25th best pro-style quarterback. Not overall. Not overall. He was the number 25 pro-style quarterback. And the number 6 player in the state of Oregon. There were 5 players ranked in the state of Oregon ahead of a guy who was the number 5 pick in the NFL draft and is a superstar at the position. So I'm not coming on here to tell you rankings don't matter, because they do. Don't ever pretend that rankings are everything. They're not. They never have been. And people that have a properly nuanced perspective on the matter don't see it that way. Brock Thomas is outperforming his recruiting profile. That is 100% accurate. If you did not know anything about that situation, you'd go, Oregon's got a solid backup quarterback. He looks like he executed the offense well. He didn't make any mistakes. He didn't have an incompletion. Yeah, he could have had one, but he had a higher QBR than Dante Moore in this game. Not saying he should be the starter, but he was 4-4 for 46 yards and a touchdown. What would your reaction be if Austin Novosad came in and did that? Or if Luke Moga came in and did that? You'd say, hey, seems like you got the guy of the future there. Seems like you're good if something happens to Dante Moore. Well, something did happen to Dante Moore in this game. And Brock Thomas came in and did his job. Absolutely did his job. I don't think it's hard to see at this point with the number of games we have seen how he has outperformed Moga and Novosad. I think he's, based on what we've seen, obviously the coaches have seen more. He looks like a more efficient, more consistent passer than Luke Moga, and he seems like someone that runs the offense well. My guess is that's the differentiating factor, because I don't know that he's got the same physical talents. He's smaller than Novosad. I don't think he has quite as big of an arm as Austin Novosad, but it's obviously good enough, and that means he's doing the other little stuff better. Remember, Ty Thompson was 6'5" with a cannon for an arm, but he couldn't do the stuff between the ears. Right? He couldn't run the offense. He couldn't make reads. He wasn't comfortable. Well, maybe Novosad's struggling with that sort of stuff. And Brock Thomas clearly doesn't, because he just came in a rain game, in a conference showdown. Well, let's not call it a showdown. In a conference matchup, in a game that was still in doubt, and he went out there and won the game. So, yeah, I'm with Lanning on this one. You know, if you're worried about it, I just go, why? What has he shown? What has he shown except an ability to make some legit throws? Go back to the spring game. He hit Sadiq on a 40-yard dot down the field. He was 3 of 4 for, 75 yards against Rutgers last week. He's 4 of 4 for 46 and a touchdown in this one. Yeah, against Rutgers, 3 of 4 for 45 yards. Sorry, like his overall numbers this year, he hasn't thrown a ton of passes, but he is 9 for 13 for 105 yards and a touchdown. No picks, no fumbles. Kind of seems like it's all right. Kind of seems like it's all right. So, yeah, the second half was ugly. The first half, but that was, again, weather related. I'm so bummed that fake punt doesn't count. That stinks. That really stinks. That bums me. That's going to bum me out the rest of the night. So, yeah, I think we can kind of wrap it there. And obviously, I'll have more thoughts next week. Send me all your questions, and I'll be able to get to them next week on the show. Iowa's up next. Iowa's playing really good football. No other way to say it. I have been anti-Hawkeyes in a way. Like, they're a very high floor program. They look to have elevated their ceiling. Their offense has taken off. They shellacked Minnesota, who's a good team. Not great, but Minnesota's a good, solid team. And in a rivalry game, Iowa rolled them. It was 41-3, I think. Hawkeyes look like a wagon. That's Oregon's next opponent in 2 weeks. They better be ready. Dante Moore better be healthy. The offensive game plan better be more cohesive. The offensive line better be more consistent. A lot of things. A lot of things for Oregon to clean up going into that game in Iowa City. But, yeah, overall, just to kind of put a bow on this one, it's always close with Wisconsin, is it? Or at least closer than you feel like it should be. 2 years in a row where that's been the case. I wouldn't worry about anything you saw offensively in the second half. I think it's just, frankly, a bigger testament to what Brock Thomas was able to do. And send me all your questions via DMs on Twitter or Instagram, or become a Locked On Ducks Insider is the most surefire way to get your questions in the mailbag. But we'll have plenty of time to talk about them all next week on the show. So let me know how you guys are feeling right now. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.